Let's start with Donald Trump's hush money cover-up trial in Manhattan, where the defense went after Michael Cohen and his past lies under oath, even suggesting that some of his testimony in this current trial has been dishonest. Cohen's cross-examination will continue on Monday, we're told. CNN's Paula Reed's outside the courthouse. And Paula, the defense challenged Cohen's memory that he testified about just earlier this week about this October 24th, 2016 phone call. Cohen said that that call was with Trump about the hush money reimbursement. But tell us about how the defense tried to undermine that today.
So the first thing they did is they brought up exactly what he said under direct examination by prosecutors. When he was asked, why did you need to speak with Trump at that point in the evening of October 24th? Cohen testified to discuss the Stormy Daniels matter and the resolution of it. And did you have an understanding about whether during that conversation you resolved that? You were moving forward to fund the deal? Yes, Cohen said. And the reason this was significant evidence for prosecutors is that this suggests that Trump was aware of this conspiracy to conceal this hush money payment to Stormy Daniels in the days leading up to the election. It was also new evidence. This is not something that we'd ever heard previously. But today, Todd Blanche came with receipts, and he pointed to a log, a timeline of events from that day, where that evening, Michael Cohen texted Keith Schiller, so Trump's body man, about prank phone calls that he had been getting from a teenager. Schiller then tells Cohen to call him. Cohen then calls Schiller and they have a 90-second conversation. And the defense attorneys, of course, asked, okay, why are we supposed to believe that you called him after that exchange when you have a 14-year-old, a prankster who's begging you not to stick the Secret Service on them? We see these receipts, we see this evidence. Why would we think that that 90-second call was about Stormy Daniels? Cohen responded saying that part of the call with Schiller was about the 14-year-old, but I know that Keith was with Trump at the time, and there was potentially more than this. Now, he says that was a lie. You did not talk to President Trump. You talked to Keith Schiller. You can admit it. Cohen replied, no, sir, I don't know that is accurate. And at one point in this exchange, Cohen kind of fell back to saying, look, I don't recall. But this was a significant blow to Michael Cohen's credibility about this specific phone call, because, again, they came with records, and Michael Cohen has never testified to this before. So in terms of sowing seeds of doubt about this significant piece of evidence, it appears that Todd Blanche was incredibly significant. So, Jake, over the next 3-day weekend, the prosecutors have from this case, you can bet they're trying to brainstorm ways to clean this up.
All right, Paula Reed, thanks so much. Let's bring in attorney George Conway, who was inside the courtroom today, as well as in studio here with me, former Trump attorney Tim Parlatore. George, you were in court. Do you agree with Paula Reed's assessment and the assessment made by other journalists, other people in the room, that Todd Blanche really took a hammer to Michael Cohen's credibility, especially on that October 24th, 2016 phone call assertion? What was your take?
I thought it was a mixed bag. I don't think he was particularly effective all day overall. I thought that there were some good points that were scored here and there, particularly about about his history of lying and the history of misstatements. But it was scattered. It was he took too long. The questioner, it took too long to get to each point. It should have been done much more quickly, and as a result, it just felt meandering and ineffectual. And the thing that also surprised me was that how little of the cross-examination really addressed the case. I mean, Paula refers to that one circumstance just before lunch about that October 24th phone call that went to Schiller's phone. And yes, that was good cross. I would have been, if I were the cross-examiner, that would have been a good thing to cross-examine Michael Cohen on. But I didn't think it was done particularly effectively. And I thought, okay, wow, then they must have some more after lunch where they're going to pick apart some of the other calls, because there's just a mountain of evidence that really shows President Trump's involvement and Weisselberg's involvement and lots of phone calls. And that was it. In the afternoon, there was it went back to meandering, even more weak meandering than in the morning, stuff about, how many times has Maggie Haberman of the New York Times written about you? And it was really hard to follow. And I don't know that, the thing I would be worried about if I were the defense is that good point just before lunch was lost in all the sort of the meandering. And ineffective examination that occurred the rest of the day. Now, maybe they've got something they're saving for Monday, and I mean, for their sake, I think they better hope so. But by and large, I don't, overall, after looking at the effectiveness of the direct examination from 2015 on through, past the election and all the corroborating documentation and the corroborating phone records, just nitpicking at this one call, I just don't think is going to be enough. And I have a feeling that on redirect, it's going to get all cleaned up by the prosecution. I think I know how they can do that.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. So, Tim, there is going to be redirect.
Yeah.
The prosecution has said so. They said it's going to be less than an hour. How to clean it up? What would you recommend that they do to clean it up for Michael Cohen?
I disagree with what George said there, because I think that was a significant point. Yeah, sure, there was a lot of meandering there, but how do you clean it up? You have to find some way to explain the fact that he lied on direct about this, and to really plug that up, because the prosecution's biggest problem here is they have a lot of corroboration for the things that are not in dispute. They have a lot of corroboration for the things that are not elements of the crime. But the pieces that actually put Donald Trump into the alleged crime, those elements, those are the things that there is no corroboration for. You have to rely upon Michael Cohen's word. You have to rely upon his word of what they had said in a conversation that's not transcribed. And when you can show, okay, this one call that you were very specific about, that was a lie, you may not have those perfect text messages to show that the other calls were lies. And so if all you're relying upon is there is a phone record showing there was a call, and then there's Michael Cohen saying what happened there, that's not something you can rely upon. And a lot of what cross is you're building points for the summation.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you really rehabilitate that.
So, George, obviously during the testimony,
go ahead. I have to respond to that.
Please
if
do.
I could just respond to that.
Do.
I think that Mr. Palatori is grossly overstating that the prosecution showed that Michael Cohen lied at that instance. I mean, it shows that he didn't initially recall that part of the call may have had to do with this 14-year-old person who was making phone calls about harassing phone calls. But it's not inconsistent with the proposition that both he might have talked to Schiller about that very briefly and then told, hey, boss, put the boss on, hey, boss, we fixed the problem. We'll see what they say on redirect, but I mean, I didn't get the overall feeling that Michael was flummoxed and that he had been shown to have lied. He may have been shown to have forgotten a particular aspect of something that happened that day and may or may not have been a part of that phone call. But to say that it was, this devastating lie that was shown, they didn't get there, and they needed to.
Yeah,
and I was in the courtroom and I saw it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This may be the difference between George as a civil lawyer, me as a criminal lawyer, because ultimately this is about reasonable doubt. And by showing this is something that raises reasonable doubt. And the moment that you start saying, well, it's possible that it could have been the way that he said it, it's possible that that's reasonable doubt. And so, I appreciate George's opinion.
The answer to that is that's just one small piece of the puzzle and piece of the story. It's not the whole thing, and you have to look at reasonable doubt in terms of the whole story and whether there is a plausible set of facts that is consistent with the entirety of this massive record. That somebody could say, I think it's possible that Trump didn't know what the hell was going on, and I think you have to be half brain dead to think that.
Tim?
And they may get one or two jurors to say that, but who knows?
Tim?
I think an unbiased juror is going to take a look at this, and they're going to take the evidence from both sides and make a reasonable decision.
And you think they will find reasonable doubt based on what you've heard so far?
I think that reasonable doubt has been sought, not just from this single point, and I know George doesn't like that, but not just from this single point, but there's a lot of different things here. Plus, there's the defense case to put on. If they put on Bob Costello, that's going to be a lot of reasonable doubt.
George, what do you make of that, the idea that the defense might put on Bob Costello, who would, as if he follows what he did in Congress yesterday, will take a hammer to a whole bunch of assertions Michael Cohen made?
Well, I mean, that could be very helpful for defense. They need something. They need to put on some kind of case to contradict these critical but small pieces connecting the various the documentary trail, and we'll see. If they come up with somebody, they may come up with somebody. But they need something, because they didn't quite do it. They didn't do enough, or nearly enough to my mind, with the cross today, which was largely ineffectual. I wouldn't say that they didn't lay a glove on Michael. They brushed him a little and maybe slapped him once, but I just don't see that that's enough.
George Conway
to
and
establish reasonable doubt on this record.
George Conway and Tim Parlatore, thanks so much, both of you, for being here.